If you followed this channel for any period of time, you know I love to make videos on how I enjoy playing FIFA career mode to give you guys some ideas on how you can keep enjoying it despite the game being out for about 10 months now. So in today's video, I've got 6 tips that I think can help you still enjoy the game despite it being July. We're going to be starting with the first one, which is to make a squad of players who are retiring this year and probably won't be on next year's game. Now, unfortunately, EA has already removed quite a lot of these. People like Mark Noble have been gone, Kolarov is gone, and even Lauren Koscielny is gone. But there are still a few players on the game who are retiring and won't actually be on FIFA 23. There's a load of lists out there on Transfermarkt and on random websites that can tell you some of the players who are retiring and probably are not going to return to FIFA ever again. They're not going to be legends, they're not good enough for that, so it's probably the last time you'll ever be able to use them on a FIFA game. It might not be as good as the potential list on next year's game, where you might have the likes of Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Gianluigi Buffon, Pepe, and maybe even people like Luka Modric and Ronaldo, but this year does still have some pretty interesting players. Why not chuck them all in the same career mode team and see if you can win a trophy? Maybe go in the Premier League or Bundesliga and see if you can win the league with these last chance saloon players. I think it would be a cool challenge and, like I said, a good chance to use some players you might never have used and might never be able to use ever again. If you're looking for more of a long-term challenge, then allow me to introduce the Alphabet Challenge, which is something I've seen people do on Football Manager quite a lot. Simply pick a single letter from the alphabet before you start your career mode. For example, if you choose the letter A, you can start at any team that begins with the letter A. Every single season you have to move to a different team that has this letter. So for example, if you start out with Antwerp, maybe you'll move to Anderlecht in the same league. You get bored of playing in Belgium, so you head over to Italy with Atalanta. Then you go to Spain with Atletico Madrid, and then finally the Premier League with Arsenal. I think doing this kind of save would give you a good chance to use some teams maybe you've never used before, and it might even give you an idea for a team you want to do a long-term save with on FIFA 23. For example, maybe you really like the young players at Atletico Madrid, you only use them for a year on FIFA 22, but next year you decide this is going to be your main save. It would be a good chance to scout out some interesting teams, interesting leagues, and I think a good idea for you to do it before this game cycle ends. Another good challenge could be moving some of the promoted teams up to see if you can survive with the transfers they've made in real life. For example, Nottingham Forest, my team, have been making a lot of transfers this year. Maybe move them all before you start your save and see how good they really are. Bournemouth haven't done the same kind of transfer moves, but their team was already better to start with. So maybe in that example, you could just not make any transfers and see how good and see if you can survive with their starting squad. Fulham have done sort of a hybrid of the two teams. This is all, of course, Premier League examples only. So maybe you could use some of their existing transfer budget to strengthen some of the existing players. Before you start the save, transfer people like Andreas Pereira onto the squad and João Palhinha onto the squad, and then see if you can survive with that. I think moving these promoted teams is a really good idea because it lets you use some teams in leagues that they're normally not in, of course. So you're going to have the Fulham squad with players who are really suited for the Championship. You're going to be using them in the Premier League. A pretty interesting challenge in my opinion. If you want to use players who aren't on FIFA 23, maybe you'd be interested in doing a final rebuild of a team that won't be in FIFA 23. There are some pretty cool names and some big teams that aren't actually going to be on next year's game. Bordeaux, for example, are a massive club that are going through really hard times. But if you're interested in playing as them, now might be the best time because they're going to potentially disappear unless EA adds the French 3rd division on next year's game, which I think is pretty unlikely. If you're interested in a more small league and a smaller team, Wisla Krakow are also being removed, and Turgucu Munkun have dissolved from the German 3rd division. So if you're interested in a road to glory in Germany, maybe do it with this team because they've got an interesting story of being founded by Turkish players and signing a lot of Turkish ethnicity players. And it's a good example of a team not on next year's game with a fun challenge and a good road to glory story. Why not give that a try quickly before FIFA 23 comes out? If you've been playing FIFA 22 religiously, you're probably going to have had a lot of different saves and of course a lot of different youth players coming through your teams. So before FIFA 23 comes out, why don't you recreate your favourite regen as a manager and see if you can give them as great of a managerial career as they had a playing career. Everyone has player regens or player fake youth players that come through and they really enjoy using. So I think it's a cool idea, and maybe you could even do the same thing on FIFA 23 if you think their career was extra interesting. I think this is even cooler if they're from a different nationality than your club. Say, for example, you're playing in England and you had a really good Bolivian youth player. You can make your manager Bolivian and see if you can sign a bunch of Bolivian players on your team. See if you can get them up to Premier League standard. I think it's a cool idea, and definitely if you've got any ideas and you want to tell me about your favourite youth player, leave it in the comments below because I love reading those kind of stories. Alternatively, you can join the Discord where there's a link as well and tell everyone on there, because we all really do enjoy reading about regens and youth players, and of course it's a really good community that we've got on Discord. The final tip that I'm going to give you guys is to use a rarely used career mode team. If you head over to sofifa.com, you press teams at the top, you can see all of the most popular teams ranked on how many clicks they've got over the past 24 hours. For example, Barcelona, Arsenal and Juventus are the top 3 currently for me. But if you head all the way down to the bottom, you can press next. You keep doing this a bunch of times and eventually you will get to around page 10 or 15 where no one has ever actually pressed them for the last 24 hours. You might get some teams that you have never seen on FIFA 23, and that's just because sofifa has every single FIFA team that's ever been on the game series. But you will also find some pretty interesting teams that are on the game. For example, I found out that no one's pressed Plymouth Argyle for a long time. They're a pretty interesting team. They've got a unique green kit, which isn't too common in the English leagues. They're from the biggest city in Devon, which has no Premier League teams at all. So the whole area really of Cornwall and Devon has no Premier League teams. So it's a really interesting challenge to maybe try and get them back up to the Premier League. But just have a look and see if you can find a team you think would be interesting to use. Almost every team has a unique story and a place where you can use it, so why don't you have a look, see if you can figure one out, and if you find an interesting one, of course, as before, do drop it in the comments below, because everyone on this channel is interested in more interesting FIFA saves. So thank you all for watching. Hopefully you're getting ready for FIFA 23, but hopefully you're still also enjoying FIFA 22. It might be an old game, but I think the gameplay is still quite fun on career mode. Ultimate Team might be a little bit far gone now, but Ultimate Team is a totally different thing, of course. Career mode can still be fun, provided you've still got the motivation to make it fun, because the base game really at this point can be a little bit stale. If you've got any tips at all that you think other people should do to keep FIFA interesting at this part of the game cycle, please do let us know in the comments below. Check out the links in the description as well. If you want to join the Discord, follow me on Twitter, or ask me any kind of questions, do try and do it on Discord. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you very soon for more FIFA 22 and FIFA 23 content. Thank you and goodbye.